So then I get a call, like, oh, hey, Leandro died. Felipe wants to cancel the match. So I'm like, all right, we can't cancel the match. They're like, well, he wants to change the rules to 30 minutes. And I'm like, no, like, Felipe's notorious for always trying to change the rules last minute or do, like, weasel his way into something that wasn't agreed upon. So I'm like, no. I'm like, we either fight as the agreed upon rule set, or we just reschedule. Like, we had the bet match, the contract, it was for a no time limit match.
We should also explain to people that you gave him 10-1 on the money.
Yeah.
So you put up $100,000 to his $10,000.
Correct.
You guys put it in escrow, which is a wild thing to do.
I was the escrow account.
Okay.
So
it's a wild thing to do.
Yes. That's how the whole match came, because he was competing against some guy who won, like, the Brazilian trials. And he, like, basically beat Felipe. It was, like, a terrible match for Felipe. Felipe won, but he didn't look great. So he's like, oh, do you want to do a no time limit match? He called him out publicly. He's like, do you want to do a no time limit match? We can do a bet match if you want. I'm like, oh, you're doing bet matches, no time limit now. I'm like, I'll give you 4-1 odds. I'm like, you can pick the number. I'll put up 4-1. Like, you put up 10,000, I'll put up 40. You put up 100, I'll put up 400. And he makes this big long post basically to say no. And I'm like, really, 4-1? No. I'm like, I'll give you 10-1. He's like, okay, fine, 10-1. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm like, you pick the number. He's like, 10,000. I'm like, 10,000. I'm like, that's the best fucking number you can come up with. I'm like, if someone gave me 10-1 odds, I'm putting up like at least 100 grand. Like, fucking figure it out. He goes, I'll put up 10,000. I'm like, okay. So he wires Mo the 10,000. I wire Mo the 100,000. And then he's trying to change the rules. And I'm like, no, we have this like contract agreed on. So I'm like, we either fight as agreed or we reschedule the match. Like, if you can fight for 10 minutes, you can fight for an hour. It doesn't fucking make a difference. Like, if you're going to do the match, do the match. So then he's like, oh, no, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to fight. So then this is where it gets interesting, because he's like, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to fight. And doors are about to open. So Flo, like, has a meeting with him, and they're like, hey, like, we'll give you some extra money. And he's like, okay, now I'll fight. And I'm like, okay, so you wanted to fight. You just fucking wanted more money. Like, So they had to pay him more money to get him to fight. And then he goes out, and you can always tell when Felipe's starting to lose it. His body language falls apart. He starts complaining to the ref. So the second he didn't want to sit back, we went out of bounds. And he didn't want to go back to bottom guard, which is the position that we finished in. And I'm like, yep, he's done. And then I started picking up the pace a little bit. And then we ended up standing back up. And then he just walks over to the judging table. And Howell was there. And he's like, are you done? Like, what's wrong? And Felipe apparently was just like looking around, not saying anything, like just like traumatized. So then like there's crowd starts booing him, and then he comes back to the mat, and I'm like, yep, he's toast. So then I started picking up the pace more, and then like 2 minutes later, he's like, okay, he's like, I was like passing his guard, about to pass his guard, and I just hear, okay, I'm gonna stop now, and I'm just like, what? And he's like, I'm gonna stop now. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, buddy. So I just got up, and he just fucking quit during the match. So then he had this whole post-fight interview where he's like telling how I'm a terrible person and this and that. So now he's just getting back to his normal life. Like, things are just starting to settle down. And I just realized when Mo got here, I'm like, we have a second bet. He's like, would you give me the same odds for ADCC? I'm like, yes, absolutely. I'm like, 10-1. So we signed the second contract. So now Mo messaged him the other day, and he's like, hey, Felipe, you need to send me another $10,000 for if you guys meet at ADCC. And now he just fucking wakes up to this message like, oh, man, I have to send this fucking guy another 10 grand. So now we have a second bet match where if we meet at ADCC, it's the same 10-1 odds.
So this is only if, because the brackets are random?
Well,
How are the brackets picked?
I do the brackets.
Oh, so you do it. You select.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Well, you could conveniently select.
I asked him to put the top 4 seeds on my side, but he told me they couldn't do that.
Yeah, he always does crazy stuff. I mean, for example, Gordon's the first guy I've ever seen who's doing the super fight and asked to do the division as well. So he's doing both. He's going to do the division. The crazy thing is this, potentially, very high chance maybe, I mean, I think Felipe Pena is going to be the second seed. So if they do meet, it'll be in the finals. So the 2 super fight fighters in 2019 was Felipe Pena against Gordon. So there is a possibility where Gordon would face Felipe Pena, and then the next, an hour later, Andre Galvao. So it's just insane.
Someone will definitely kill themselves if I submit Pena and then submit Andre. Like, some hater somewhere is just going to just blow their brains out 100%.
Yeah, yeah. People they've run out of shit to say.